The story begins in an old black and white Los Angeles night, where a restless group of black teenagers pulls up outside a quiet home. Inside, Derek is spending the night with his girlfriend Stacy, while his younger brother Danny hangs around. Danny spots the teens surrounding Derek's car and trying to break in, and therefore he rushes to warn his brother. Derek stays strangely calm. He pulls a gun from his drawer, tells Stacy and Danny to stay inside, and steps out wearing nothing but shorts. When one teen comes straight to the door, Derek shoots him without hesitation. The rest panic and try to run. However, Derek keeps firing until bodies hit the ground. Danny comes outside in shock and sees Derek standing there with a disturbing sort of pride, his chest marked with a swastika that confirms his devotion to a violent neo-Nazi gang. The story moves forward to the present. Derek is now in prison for the murders, and Danny is trying to survive high school. However, things get messy when Danny turns in a school assignment praising Adolf Hitler as a hero. His teacher loses it and drags the situation to Principal Bob Sweeney. The teacher insists Danny is becoming another Derek, but Bob refuses to let that be the end of the boy. Bob pushes the teacher out of the room and talks to Danny privately. Instead of suspension, Danny receives a new personal course titled American History X. Bob, who once taught Derek as well, becomes Danny's direct mentor. He orders him to write a full paper about Derek, his past, and what is happening now. The assignment becomes the one thing that can save Danny's future. Later, Danny finds himself in the boys' bathroom, smoking while 3 black students harass a white girl. Danny steps in. He doesn't yell. Instead, he stares them down, blows smoke in one guy's face, and watches them back away because everyone knows Derek's old gang still circles around the boy. After they leave, Danny tells the girl to toughen up. Meanwhile, Principal Bob meets with police and federal agents. Derek is being released after 3.5 years, and the authorities fear his return will ignite more racial violence because many white gangs still worship him. Bob insists Derek has changed. Prison stripped him down. The officers show Bob an old recording from the night Derek's father died in a drug house fire, where young Derek angrily blames black, Asian, and Mexican people for stealing jobs and destroying America. Bob says Derek was never the real danger. The true puppeteer is Cameron, the slick racist who fed Derek lies, used his grief, and turned him into a weapon that could pull in lost white boys looking for someone to follow. But now, Derek is a completely different man. A year earlier, Principal Bob was working in the prison as a counselor, and that is when he met Derek again. From that point on, Derek was slowly breaking out of the hateful mindset that once controlled him. That change is becoming the quiet force that pushes the story forward. Later in the day, Danny is walking home from school, and as he passes the neighborhood basketball court, he realizes things are not the same anymore. Now, the court is full of black boys playing, laughing, and owning the space with ease. However, the sight pulls him back into another black and white memory from 3 years earlier. Back then, Seth, the chubby white kid, was playing while Derek and Cameron were standing nearby like they ran the whole block. When Seth's team lost and a few black kids were teasing him, Derek simply took off his shirt, stepped onto the court, and challenged them to a white boys versus black boys match. The rule was simple. If Derek won, the court would belong only to the white kids. The game was rough, one black player even elbowing Derek, but Derek stayed focused, kept pushing, and ended up winning. Because of that, the black kids were forced to walk away in humiliation. The story then shifts back to the present, where Derek is finally released after 3.5 years. Danny, their mother, and their sister Davina are waiting outside the prison gates. The reunion starts warm, but it changes fast when Derek notices a new gang tattoo on Danny's arm, the same symbol Derek once had. Danny says Cameron brought him officially into the gang, and Derek is clearly unhappy, even though he tries not to explode. Later at home, Derek walks into Danny's room to answer a call from Principal Bob. The walls are covered with Nazi signs, Hitler posters, and hateful symbols that remind Derek of the person he used to be. While he is talking on the phone, Seth suddenly walks in with a camera, acting like he's filming some hero documentary. He asks Danny what he thinks about black people, and Danny repeats the same nasty lines Cameron feeds all his boys. Davina is upset and Derek is disappointed in a way that shows on his face. When Derek ends the call, Seth tries to hug him, but Derek cuts him off. He says Bob already told him everything about Danny's school project. Seth snaps, insulting Bob for being black, and Derek throws him out of the house without hesitation. After Seth leaves, Derek turns to Danny and speaks firmly. He tells him to focus on school, respect Bob, and stop letting Cameron mess with his head. Later that night, Derek sits with their tired mother and explains he has a job interview tomorrow. From now on, he says, he is stepping in at home so Danny and Davina can stop living under the shadow of the hate he once spread. Danny says Cameron is hosting a wild party to celebrate Derek's release, but Derek shuts it down immediately and tells him to stay home and finish the assignment. Danny gets irritated, goes back to his room, smokes a little to clear his head, and finally starts writing. As he works, he sinks into memories of Derek's past, the darker years that shaped both of them. He remembers how Derek used to stand in front of rooms filled with frustrated white boys and girls preaching hate with absolute confidence. Cameron used him like a weapon, and Derek was smart enough, charming enough, and angry enough to pull people in. One speech alone brought almost 20 new kids into the gang. Soon after, they trashed a Korean man's store and poured milk all over a black woman working there. The whole neighborhood lived in fear because the gang acted like they owned the streets. Danny also recalls a tense lunch at their house. Their history teacher came over, and the Rodney King incident became the center of the conversation. Derek didn't show a single drop of sympathy. He said Rodney King was drunk, dangerous, and asking for trouble. He argued that most black people had criminal records anyway and were dragging the country down. The teacher tried explaining poverty and systemic problems, but Derek dismissed everything as excuses, and the room filled with anger. His girlfriend Stacy supported him aggressively. Davina got upset. Their mother tried to calm the situation, but Derek grabbed Davina by the hair, shoved his mother aside, and threatened the teacher until he left. That moment stayed burned in Danny's mind. As he writes, more memories hit him. He realizes that if he hadn't run to Derek that night, the black teens might still be alive. He remembers the gunshots, the boy crawling, and the brutal curb stomp that followed. Derek looked proud. Danny lied to the police to save him, calling it self-defense because back then Derek was still his hero. While Danny is still working, his skinhead friends show up. Ignoring the promise he made, he leaves with them and heads to Cameron's party. The crowd treats Derek like a returning king. Stacy hugs him like no time has passed, but when Derek tells her to stay away from Cameron and the gang, she gets uneasy and slowly pulls back. Realizing Derek isn't the same man she once followed, Derek walks into Cameron's office while Cameron is busy poisoning more young minds, including Danny. Derek calmly tells Danny to go home, and Danny listens even though he is confused. Cameron is thrilled to see Derek at first, but the excitement dies when Derek says he is done with the gang, done with white supremacy, and done letting Cameron control his life. He also tells Cameron to stay away from Danny for good. Cameron freezes, unable to speak. Derek calls him out for never checking on him in prison and for hiding behind teenagers instead of fighting his own battles. Cameron snaps, starts screaming, and begins insulting Derek's family. Derek finally loses patience, punches him hard, and walks out. Seth sees the chaos, panics, and pulls a gun on Derek in front of everyone. Derek grabs the gun with ease, fires into the air just to shut the crowd up, and leaves with Danny. Danny is yelling and confused, so Derek drags him to a quiet park. There, he finally explains everything that happened in prison and why his entire worldview collapsed. He tells Danny how, in Chino, most inmates were black, and he expected violence from the first day. When he exercised shirtless and the black inmates saw his Nazi tattoo, their eyes filled with hate, and Derek braced himself for the worst. Meanwhile, the Aryan Brotherhood pulled him in, treating him like a rising star. He worked in the laundry with a black man named Lamont, whom he refused to speak to at first. Lamont saw right through him, sensing the hate instantly. Derek explains how he caught the white gang secretly selling drugs to the Mexican gang. It shattered the fantasy he had built around racial purity. His cellmate tried explaining that prison rules were different, but Derek couldn't accept hypocrisy. Once he insulted them, the Brotherhood turned on him. Lamont, however, kept cracking jokes, slowly breaking Derek's walls. Derek started loosening up and eventually began trusting him. Soon, Derek pulled away from the whites completely and played basketball with the black inmates. The Brotherhood felt betrayed. They attacked him in the shower, beat him until he collapsed, and left him bleeding. In the hospital, Principal Bob visited him as a counselor. Derek finally broke down. Bob told him that hate would eat him alive. Derek asked for help, and Bob found him a good lawyer. When Derek returned, he refused to join any group. Lamont warned him he could be killed now, but Derek didn't care. He was done. From then on, every day in prison felt like walking on a thin line, not knowing if he would survive, while the people he once hated never touched him. He is spending most of his time reading books now, and during the last 6 months of his sentence, he is keeping to himself. Even on his release day, he is still unsure if he is actually walking out alive. However, before he leaves, Lamont wishes him well, and Derek finally understands that Lamont is the one who convinced the others to leave him alone. Therefore, Derek is genuinely grateful. Back in the present, Derek is telling Danny that people like Bob and Lamont, both black, are the ones who have done more for him than any white guy ever has. He admits that he has been using his anger as fuel for hate, and that same hate made him kill 2 men. However, deep down, he realizes he never truly hated black people. Instead, he hated himself. Danny finally understands why his brother is different now. When they get home, they hug their family. Then, together, they start pulling down every Nazi poster and symbol from Danny's room. Danny is finishing his school project, and while writing, he realizes Derek didn't suddenly become racist after their father died. The truth is, it started way earlier. Their father always made racist comments and refused to hire black people. Derek absorbed that mindset and passed it on to Danny. Therefore, Danny decides the cycle stops with him. The next morning, Derek is getting ready for a job interview, and Danny is preparing to submit his project. Derek drops him at school. They already know Cameron's group had a run-in with some black guys the night before. After being dropped off, Danny goes to the restroom. However, the same black boy he insulted earlier is waiting there. The kid pulls out a gun and shoots him. Danny collapses, his project falling from his hands. When the news spreads, Derek rushes to the school, pushes through the crowd, and breaks down as he holds his brother's body. The same hate he once spread is now the reason Danny is gone. And the pages meant to end. That hate are now covered in blood.